All right, so it's good to see everybody. It's good to have another year of our Torah, which became Bible class. Pretty amazing that this is probably the 30th year that we're doing it, or the 31st year. Where I have us on chapter 16 of the book of Joshua. So this is the newer edition, as Barbara Fink pointed out, that when I was using this original edition, the comments below are different. So page six, chapter 16 in here, which is on page 96. And then we also, of course, refer to Ancient Israel by Robert Alter, which I guess if you have the complete Bible translation by him, might be the same, but I'm not sure if that's updated also from this volume. And let me mute all. And also, so again, feel free. Oh, there, Barry's there. We see you. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
I
Rabbi.
muted everybody.
I don't know what I did, but okay.
Yeah,
What chapter were we on?
chapter 16 of the book of Joshua.
Okay.
So,
So if
yeah.
I've got this edition, the older one, it's the same
Oh,
page.
yeah, that's fine. Yes. Because I have that too. And so is that also, let me see, is that page 96 also? It is. It's just that the commentary below, Barbara pointed out when I was reading only from this, that it was different from this. So I'm going to be reading from this, and what I have here will mostly be included here. Anyway, complicated. The text is the same. The text of the book of Joshua is the same. It's the commentary that has changed. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And so let me, this is a short chapter, so I'm gonna, it's only 10 verses long, where the context, again, is that we're in the midst of how the land of Israel is being apportioned to the tribes. So we had initially in the Torah, Moses saying that the land would be apportioned once they had annihilated and driven out the indigenous Canaanite population. So now they've done the best they could with driving them out. We've been told that they did not drive everyone out, that there were still Canaanites there, and there are some Philistines there too, but they've done it sufficiently to show them that the Israelites, are in charge, and in charge enough to apportion the land. Okay, so Vayetze Hagoral livnei Yosef miyarden Yericho lemei Yericho mizracha hamidbar haole miricho bahar Beit El. So the lot, the portion, Goral in modern Hebrew is also fate, which is the reason. So how is fate related to like lottery, or because it's more like a lottery, because it's random. But this isn't random. In other words, they had a pot with the names of the tribes written on something inside of it. You pull out, you put your hand in and pull out. So that's how it's fated, or it was decided that this is the next tribe we're going to be giving land to. Okay, so that's the process. So we're now dealing with the descendants of Joseph. So remember, Joseph doesn't have his own tribe. His two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, are the two tribes that take Joseph's place. So what are the boundaries? It's from the Jordan at Jericho to the waters of Jericho, eastward, the desert, at the waters of Jericho on the east, going up from Jericho through the hill country to the wilderness. Hamidbar ole miricho bahar. So the wilderness goes up from Jericho in the mountains to Beit El. So now that's diagonal. If let me just see there, I'm in the library instead of in my office. Let me just go to another shelf to get my get an Eitz Chaim that has a map. 1 sec.
This is before they discovered eeny, meeny, miny, mo, so they had to do it with the shards.
Right. So it's a more sacred form of eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, if you have an Eitz Chaim handy and you turn to the glossy maps in the back, which are after page 1512, you'll see that Jericho would be where the Jordan River hits the Dead Sea. No, it's not. It's above that, just to the left. There's a red dot that says Jericho, to the right of the word Gibeon. But Beit El almost is directly west of Jericho. So the boundary so far is going from Jericho, well, actually the Jordan River near Jericho, all the way to Beit El. Okay, and then it continues, verse 2, V'yatsa mi Beit El Luza va'avar el gvul ha'arki atarot. Then the boundary went from Beit El to Luz. Yeah, so it went out from Beth El Luz. I would translate this, it went out from Beit El to Luz, Ve'avar el gvul ha'arki, and it passed along the border of the Arkites to Atarot. So that, okay, so it continues west, slightly northwest. V'yarad Yama el gvul hayafleti. Ad gvul Beit Horon tachat Beit Horon tachton va'ad gazer v'hayu totza'otav yama. So then we'll look at the commentary after I read the 10 verses. Then the border goes downward westward to the boundary with the Yafletites, to the border of Beit Horon, the nether, or the under one. Beit Horon is on this map. So Jericho, Bethel, Luz, Beit Horon to the southwest, V'ad Gazer, and then Gezer further west. You can see it there. So it's kind of a curvy southern boundary so far. And then it would continue westward from there. From Gezer, it continues westward to the sea. Okay. Vayinchalu b'nei Yosef, Menashe ve'Ephraim. And so it was Menashe, or the half tribe of Menashe, and Ephraim that would inherit here. Verse 5, Vayihi gevul b'nei Ephraim lemishpachotam, Vayihi gevul nachalatam mizracha atrot adar ad Beit Horon elyon. So the children of Ephraim and their families, their border that they would inherit would be eastward of Atrot Adar to Beit Horon, the upper Beit Horon. Okay, 6. And then the bound V'yatsa hagvul hayama hamich metat mitzafon v'nasav hagvul mizracha ta'anat Shiloh v'avar oto mimizrach Yanocha. Then the border went westward to Michmetat from the north, and then the boundary turned eastward to Ta'anat Shiloh, and then it passed there to the east of Yanoach. V'yarad miyanocha atarot v'na'arata Faga b'Yericho v'yatsa hayarden. And then it went from Yanoach to Atarot and Na'arata, and it reached to Jericho, and it went to the Jordan River.
Jonah,
Yes,
it's a
Beth.
simplistic question, but their north is our north, their east is our east?
Yes.
How
yes.
is that it's not coincidence? I mean,
What do you mean?
did they know north, pole, north?
That's interesting. I don't know. Well, it's
Because Mizrach is east.
So I think they know the direction where the sun rises. Okay, and they call that east. Now, you raise an interesting question. Do we call it east because we know that the sun rises in the east, or do they call it Mizrach, and then later, once we know new directions, then we know that it's the east, right? In other words, churches around the world are always aligned from sunrise to sunset. Now, they're aligned east-west, but they're aligned sunrise-sunset. And that's traditional churches are aligned that way. So we're aligned to Jerusalem, which happens to be to the east. So when did people know and come up with the terms north, south, east, west? So Bess, I don't know. So technically, we would translate Mizrach as sunrise, Yama as to the sea, Safon, well, I don't have any other way to translate that other than north. And south is either Negev or Teman. So the Negev desert is south, or in that direction in the land of Israel, or below that would be Yemen. So that's way south. That's as far south as they knew about in ancient biblical times. Okay, right? The southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula. That's about as far as the boats went. Though maybe in King Solomon's time, they went further on the African side down to Ethiopia and further south. Okay, so when did the directional points get added to those geography points? I don't know, and you'd have to look that up, Bess. So it's just easier for us to translate Yama as westward, but it is towards the sea, which happens to be westward. Okay? Okay. So,
Jonah, so just
yes.
Jonah,
Yeah, go ahead, Marlene.
before you go on, but for directions, but yeah, and then you have words later that came later, right? For east, I mean, south, you have Darom. I don't know when that
right.
came
That's
about.
a later word.
Right.
So when is the word Darom added to the Hebrew language? There's also Ma'arav for
Right.
west.
Yes, but that could be from the word Erev, maybe evening. So evening time is when the sun is going
Right, that's where
down.
the sun sets in that direction, right. So Ma'arav could be rabbinic, could be. I would say that it is rabbinic because we know in medieval Hebrew, right? We have to thank the rabbi poets of Spain in the early Middle Ages for continuing to develop Hebrew. All right, so there's rabbinic Hebrew, which the poets in Spain further developed in order to create their poetry, just like Shakespeare developed English into a more poetic language in his time. So the poets, the rabbi poets, developed that, and then you have to thank Eliezer ben Yehuda and Chaim Nachman Bialik and other poets of the late 1800s, early 1900s for further developing Hebrew into a modern language. All right, so the roots for these words stem from the Bible and the Mishnah and Talmud, but modern Hebrew, so even modern Hebrew, there's an academy for the Hebrew language based in Israel that comes up with what the official Hebrew word for something should be. So, everybody in Israel says that the word for telephone is telephone, but there is a technical Hebrew word for telephone. And same for television. In Hebrew, the Hebrew word for television is televizia, but there is a more technical Hebrew word for that doesn't default to the English to become the Hebrew word, right? So the Academy for Hebrew Language wants to maintain the integrity of the Hebrew language and have as little influence from other languages into the Hebrew language, which, there are Persian words and Aramaic words in Hebrew and biblical Hebrew, like Purim. So the Academy for Hebrew Language is not going to change the name of the holiday Purim because it's a Persian word and come up with a Hebrew word instead. So, okay. Anyway, enough of that tangent. So anyway, so Bess, your research will be to find out when north, south, east, west became known to civilization. So verse 8, Mi tapuach yelech hagavul yama nachal kana, v'hayu totzaotav hayama, zot nachalat mate b'nei Ephraim lemishpachotam. And then from Tapuach, the border would go westward, where the border would go to the sea, in the direction of the sea by way of the Kana brook, and then it would end in the sea. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Ephraim according to their families. 9, Ve'arim hamivdalot livnei Ephraim, betoch nachalat b'nei Menashe, kol ha'arim ve'chatzreihen. And they'd get the cities which were separated or allotted for the children of Ephraim within the inheritance of the children of Menashe, all the cities and their villages, or the villages that are attached to those cities, right? So, and 10, Velo horishu et ha-Kenani hayoshev begazer, vayeshev ha-Kenani bekerev Ephraim ad hayom hazeh, vayehi lamas oved. So they were not able to drive out the Canaanites who were dwelling in Gezer. If you look on this first map, Gezer doesn't look like any kind of more significant town than any other town, but that's in the time of Abraham and Moses. So Gezer, now still, if you look on the third map, it's more populated, but Gezer doesn't have a big red. Oh, you're right. It's not a Philistine city, but still, does it there? The dot for Gezer isn't any more significant than the other dots. So it's just interesting that the Canaanites just all congregated in Gezer. They weren't able to drive them out of there, and they're still there until this day. Which day is that? Don't know, right? Don't know when the book of Joshua was written, because clearly Joshua didn't write it, because the last chapter of Joshua describes his death and burial. And it's not like the Torah, where there's a more important tradition that Moses wrote the Torah, even the part about his death. There isn't that sacred tradition about the book of Joshua. So it's unclear when this was written, and that the Canaanites became indentured servants, so like taxable servants, or became servants to do task work, it says here. Okay, so let's look at the commentary, pages 96 to 98. So the children of Joseph, namely Ephraim and the other half of the tribe of Manasseh, because we remember Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh are settled on the eastern side of the Jordan River. So this is the other half of Manasseh that's in land of Israel proper. Okay, the portion of Joseph marked the northernmost limit of Joshua's conquest and was not contiguous with that of Judah, the land between them being allotted to other tribes. All right, so in other words, the tribe of Manasseh was there, right there. That's the northern limit of where Joshua went. And it's, if you look at this third map, it's thanks to further conquests in the time of the judges, and then by King Saul, and mainly by David, that the rest of northern Israel comes under Israelite control. So Joshua's control, which is pretty incredible if we think about it, if the chronology and the history as presented in the Torah is true, that just 40 years after leaving Egypt, they're able to, there's still a ragtag group of former slaves, like who's giving them their military training? They're able to conquer kind of this swath of the land of Israel and defeat the Canaanites there. It's pretty remarkable. Okay. Nevertheless, as our commentary continues, nevertheless, the account of Joseph's allotment follows immediately upon Judah's because of the outstanding importance of the tribe of Ephraim in the history of the people. All right, so we have to remember that that Ephraim and Judah are the names of the tribes that represent what will happen in later biblical Israel to be the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Israel. Okay, even though there are other tribes, Ephraim is the main tribe, the most populous territory in northern Israel, and therefore all of northern Israel becomes synonymous with Ephraim. Judah is the only tribe in southern Israel, and it incorporates essentially Jerusalem there. So it's Judah, Benjamin, and Shimon that are the southern kingdom of Israel, but Shimon and Benjamin are so small that they also are associated with Judah. So northern kingdom is known as Ephraim, southern kingdom is known as Judah. And so we'll see in the Machzor next week references in the three sections in the Musaf service for Rosh Hashanah, the Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot sections, references from the prophets to like Haven Yakir li Ephraim, a child of Ephraim is dear to me. So, and that is the northern kingdom of Israel, but it's referred to as Ephraim. So the prophets, the main ones, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, and the minor prophets too, it's just common to refer to the northern kingdom as Ephraim and the southern kingdom as Judah. Okay, and so the classic image is in the prophet Ezekiel, was the northern kingdom of Israel was exiled by the Assyrians 200 years before the southern kingdom of Israel was exiled. And the northern kingdom of Israel were lost forever. Okay, they were forced to assimilate within the Assyrian Empire. So those 10 tribes were gone forever. So it's only Judah and Levi that are left behind in the southern kingdom of Israel and in Babylonian exile. And it's thanks to the Babylonians who allowed us to live our own lives as Israelites that we're still here today. So Ezekiel has this one of many images. One image as God tells him to take 2 sticks, on one write Ephraim, on the other write Judah, hold them together in his hands like this, and poof, thanks to God's miracle, the 2 sticks become one to be the comforting image to the people in exile in Babylonia that the northern kingdom will eventually reunite with the southern kingdom and become one again. Right? So we're still waiting for the northern kingdom to return. Some people think that the Ethiopian Jews are one of those tribes. Some people think that the Jews of India are another one of those tribes, right? The Jews of India who go way back are called B'nai Menashe, and the Ethiopian Jews, I think, connect to the tribe of Dan. So anyway, but that's tradition. Who knows if it's historically accurate? Okay.
Jonah, what happened to all the other tribes?
So Benjamin kind of got swallowed up into Judah, as did Shimon. So we're essentially all of the tribe of Judah. So, and then and Levi, the tribe of Levi, which includes you, the subset of Kohanim, so those are the only 2 tribes that were left. Whatever Leviim that were around who were living in the tribe of Judah, right, whatever Levitical cities were there, and of course, working in the temple in Jerusalem. So that tribe of Levi was still there, and you had the southern tribe of Judah still there. That's all Jews are today. And when people convert to Judaism, they become members of the tribe of Judah. So the other tribes are gone to history. But the traditional Jewish view is that when the Messiah comes and we are restored to life, our souls are reconnected with our bodies, then miraculously these 10 tribes will reappear.
So the 10
Jonah?
the 10 tribes, they just disappeared into
Yeah, they were assimilated in the Assyrian Empire and then gone to history. So, yes, Barry.
There were also Levitical cities in the northern kingdom.
So those Levites were gone
Levites
forever.
were
So
also
the only
just-
Levites we have are those Levites who were living in those cities in Judah and also working, the Kohanim and Leviim, who are working in the temple in Jerusalem.
So,
yeah.
So recent DNA things that have determined certain markers, like among the Ethiopians, I think, and among some other tribes,
Yeah.
are they inconclusive? Are they?
I think they're Jewish
I've heard that
markers.
those DNA things were.
I think they're accurate. I think they prove that they're Jewish, but it can't be more than that. It can't determine, oh, you're definitely from the tribe of Dan, because we don't have the DNA of the tribe of Dan to compare it to. But the Kohanim, anybody who's a Kohen, has a particular marker that the geneticists have seen goes back 3,000 years. I don't know how genetics works, but you can trace the history, how old a marker is in your DNA. So Kohanim have a marker that goes back that long. So it's possible the Ethiopian Jews have a marker that go back that long too, but it's not a Kohen marker. It's some other marker. It could be it's a Jewish marker, but you can't divide up the Jewish marker even more to have a a Zebulun marker, a Menashe art marker, right? You see what I'm saying? So I believe you're right that the Ethiopian Jews do have the DNA of Jews, but they also have the DNA of other African tribes too, because that's the nature of Jews around the world, that we did assimilate with the population within which we're living. So that's why, Jews in Arab countries look like Arabs. Jews from European countries look like Europeans. I mean, there are some stereotypical distinguishing features that might make Jews a little bit different, but essentially most white Jews in America look like other European immigrants to America. Okay, but that's the extent of my knowledge of genetics. Okay, so we continue in the commentary on 96. From the Jordan at Jericho. There the boundary commenced, but Jericho was included in Benjamin's territory. So, right, if we look at the third map in the Eitz Chaim, we'll have, you see Benjamin is kind of curved there, just south of Jericho. So apparently Jericho was in the territory of Benjamin. The waters of Jericho, a brook now called Nuemeh, flows in the vicinity. So there's some dotted blue line there. So, okay. Through the hill country, etc., the boundary as here defined runs from east to west. From Beit El Luz, Targum, that is the Aramaic translation, and Kimchi, who was Rabbi David Kimchi from the Middle Ages, render from Bethel to Luz, right? That's the way I translated it. Construing the letter Hey as denoting the locative case, that is telling you a direction or a location. But this raises a difficulty since the two names were applied to the same city. See Genesis 28. He called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz. Kimchi suggests that this was a different Beit El. Another explanation offered by Hershkovitz is that the inhabitants sometimes distinguished the two parts of the city, naming the residential part Luz and the area in the southeast where the shrine was situated, now Burj Beit Chin, as Beit El. Okay. This is all guesses. These are all guesses, by the way, where these places are, right? So when archaeologists in the 1800s were first working in the land of Israel, they used the Bible as their source, which is not really the thing to do. But there's no other record of place names and telling you where the location is other than the Bible. So what they have found in their archaeological digs, they associate with these places in the Bible, but it's unclear if it's really accurate. Okay. How about that, if you saw this in Times of Israel, how archaeologists found these swords in a cave above En Gedi, Roman swords? I don't know, how cool is that? So 2,000-year-old swords, which the archaeologists say you can use it right now. That's how well maintained it was because of the climate there. Incredible. Yeah, and they're still finding things that from the First Temple period as well, but they haven't found any kind of signposts or like "Welcome to Beit El" signs, when they do the archaeology to 100% prove that this place is that place. Okay, we continue. The Arkites, apparently a well-known family or clan. Hushai the Arkite in 2 Samuel. The name may signify a native of the town now called Ein Arik to the west of Beit El. Atarot, there is now a Jewish settlement of that name in the neighborhood of which are ruins called by the Arabs Kirbet Atra. It is nearly 4 miles south of Beit El. There used to be an airport in Atarot, just north of Jerusalem on the way to Beit El. It's abandoned now. It's supposed to be like for industrial development, but Jerusalem's airport was in this town of Atarot. The Yafletites, they are otherwise unknown. Beit Horon the Nether, see on chapter 10. Gezer, see on chapter 10. At the sea at Jaffa. So suggesting that the border ended there at the city of Jaffa. The children of Joseph, the foregoing defined the boundaries of both Ephraim and half of Manasseh. Each allotment is now described in detail. The inheritance of Ephraim. This verse is supplementary to the preceding and adds some details concerning the boundary. Ephraim, he is given precedence over Manasseh, although the younger, in accordance with Genesis 48:19. Right? And when we bless our sons traditionally every Friday night, it's always Ephraim and Manasseh, even though Manasseh was the older one. See the story there where Joseph wants to put Jacob's right hand on Manasseh's head, but Jacob crosses his hands to put his right hand on Ephraim. Okay. Eastward, that is running from east to west, which should be westward, right? Anyway, that's how the commentary is understanding that.
So I'll do when I Googled it, one civilization, East-West, all civilizations seem to recognize East as sunrise, and that's the terminology. And it said how the Sphinx pyramids in Giza, the four cardinal points were the four cardinal points of the Sphinx. Yeah. So they really did have a understanding and consideration of.
Well, so they had an understanding of east and west, and then so they just take the two other directions. But when were they called by those names as east, west, north, and south?
It doesn't matter, because when we consider the North Pole, if you look at space, it could be the South Pole. I mean,
Right.
there is no real north.
Well,
in
magnets,
space.
but the magnets in a compass, right? In other words, the magnet is in the North Pole, not the South Pole, right?
But we could call it South. It's just a word, semantic.
Okay, but we
to
don't.
north.
We don't because it's always been understood that that direction's north.
Right. So when French has a word for north, we translate it as north.
Yeah, right. But it's I'm sure the Greeks have a word for north, so that would be the original. Or maybe the Babylonians had a word for north, and that's the original.
Okay.
I don't know. So I don't know how far. I mean, the Torah has the word for it, which we translate as north.
I couldn't find the origin of the
Okay.
word.
Anyway.
Word.
All right. So
I've
yeah.
mentioned that when the American Indian Museum opened on the Smithsonian Mall, the National Mall, some years back, there were a number of celebrations, and one of them included tribes effectively shaking the lulav, shaking the branches
Yes.
of the four directions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then I've since read a little bit about it that is a pretty common thing. I don't know that they actually name the four east,
Right.
west, north, south, but they definitely acknowledge the four corners of the world.
Yeah, ancient peoples just had that sense that there are four directions. Yeah. You know, and the wind blew from basically these directions, right? So societies, depending where they are around the world, they expect a particular wind from a particular direction in a particular season. So yeah, okay. Verse 6 on 97 in the commentary, westward, literally seaward. This corresponds to and the goings out thereof, or at the sea, in verse 3. From here, the northern boundary is defined. Michmetat, it has been identified with the ruins of Jul, southeast of Shechem, or with Machane El Fuka to its south. In 17:7, it's described as before Shechem. On the north, from Michmetat, it turned in two directions, southeast and southwest, the latter course being described in verse 8. Tanat Shiloh, now Tana, 7 miles southeast of Nablus. Yanoach, the modern Yanun, south of Tanat Shiloh, and about 10 miles southeast of Nablus. Went down from the hill country to the Jordan Valley. Atarot, not the town mentioned in verses 2 and 5. Some identify it with Tel Sheikh Eziab, south of Mount Sartba. Others with the ruins of Aja El Fuka. Naara, now Tel Yisr. Jericho, that is the waters of Jericho of verse 1. The verse describes the western half of the northern border. Tapuach, not the place named in 12, 17, 15, 34, was an Ephraimite city in the territory of Menashe. The brook of Kana, the Wadi Kana, southwest of Nablus, flowing into the Aja, which empties into the Mediterranean north of Jaffa. The cities, yes, go ahead, Bess.
Tel means hill, right?
Yes, yes.
So Tel Sheikh Eziab, I don't know how to pronounce it. Was that probably not, was that a Canaanite name, not an Israelite?
These are all Arab names.
Right, but Tel is a hill in Arabic?
It could be, yes. There are some words that are interchangeable between Hebrew and Arabic and Aramaic. Yeah, it's all the same language. Well, all stems from the same language. The cities, Menashe, see 17:9, Gezer, see on 10:33. Unto this day, when the book of Joshua was composed, it was finally subjugated by the king of Egypt, who gave it to King Solomon as part of his dowry. See Kings 9:16. That is this, yeah. So it's interesting, right? The land of Israel always in a crossroads between Egypt and the Asia Minor. So the Assyrians and Egypt back and forth, land of Israel as it's just seen as its booty. Servants to do task work, see 17:13. All right, let's take a look at ancient Israel, see what Robert Alter has to say about this. So that's page 73, sorry, 73. Excuse me. And the portion for the sons of Joseph came out. As above, the Hebrew goral, portion, refers both to the aleatory device used to indicate the portion of territory and to the result of using the device, that is, the portion itself. In this instance, the verb came out refers to the toss of the oracular stone rather than to the boundary. So he's being a little bit more detailed about how this process, this allotment took place. Bethel, Luz, the received text brackets these two names together. But in Genesis 28:19, we're informed that Luz was the older name that was replaced by Bethel. And on page 74, the towns set apart for the Ephraimites within the estate of the Manassite. This indication suggests that not all the tribal boundaries were hard and fast, and that there were sometimes enclaves of one tribe within the territory of another tribe. They became forced laborers in keeping with the historiographical agenda of the writers. Whatever Canaanite population that is not destroyed or driven out becomes subjugated to the Israelites. It's questionable whether this corresponds to historical reality. Right, so not much is known archaeologically, historically from this period, right? Archaeology becomes better known from the time of King David onward. So this is all right now hypothetical because we just don't have enough material that has been discovered. Okay, So it's 10:17, and why don't we stop here for today instead of starting a new chapter and being stuck in the middle. So we'll continue next Friday, Erev Rosh Hashanah. We'll have class next Friday. Friday classes luck out. Monday classes mostly luck out, as do Wednesday, but the Sunday class, the Talmud class, does not luck out. We have class this Sunday for Talmud, but then we won't have class again for quite some time. Okay, have a good rest of the day, everybody.
Shabbos.
Shalom.
Oh my gosh, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you,
Good
Jonah.
Shabbos.
Thank you, John.
Shabbos.